Hello and a very warm welcome to Beccles on the Norfolk-Suffolk border for the latest round of Club 100 sprint season. We're at the Ellough Raceway for round 4 of the championship, not surprisingly given that we're in East Anglia. Indeed, on an old airfield, it's a flat circuit, but it offers pretty much every kind of corner and challenge. From the fast and flowing to the slow and technical, with plenty of runoff in places and in others virtually none at all. The sun is shining, and even though there is a smaller entry than usual, we still have 115 drivers entered. So action is guaranteed, and we still have 10 cracking finals coming up from the 5 classes that make up Club 100 sprints. We begin as always with the top Premier class. At the last round at Rye House, a comparatively poor Final 2 performance for Championship leader Brian Trott merely allowed him to consolidate his Championship lead to 33 points. It ended his 4 final winning streak. Reigning champion Chris Powell took his first win of the season in Final 2 to move into second place ahead of Chris Hansen. Baby Prem Championship leader Peter Cole is missing from today's grid, which ought to offer Scott Martin an opportunity to take over the class lead. While last season's Baby Prem champion Ian Blake, who took a double win here last year, will be hoping for a similar performance in an effort to overhaul Palmby and Ajar and Jonathan Listener in the championship table. After morning qualifying heats, Brian Trott continues to be the benchmark in 2013, qualifying on pole position for the first final. Pete O'Connor on the front row with him. Darren Teal continues his good form from Rye House to qualify on row 2 inside of Ian Blake. Sean Hollingsworth and Heat 1 winner Jeff Saunderson lead the Baby Prem class off row 3. Richard Hyam and Jay Elliott start on row 4. Johnny Goddard and Trevor Randall round out the top 10 of a 19-car grid. And Brian Trott's dropped the hammer very early, hardly an even pace up to the start line. And it's Trott from Teal, Pete O'Connor in third, contact behind, Tim Clark on Jamie Crease. Cavalry charge into 2, and here comes Ian Blake. Through on Pete O'Connor for third, briefly on board with Johnny Goddard as we go very narrow into turn 4. John Maycock refusing to let Chris Hansen get a run inside the corner. Randall and Elliott sweeping through the flat out turn 5. And it's pretty well flat through 6, and hauling it up on the brakes down into 7. Palmby and Ajar goes down the inside of John Maycock, and Hansen goes through. And Hyam is down the inside of Hollingsworth for what is about 5th place. Jeff Saunderson holding off Johnny Goddard. Chris Powell picking off Matt Brooks. Tim Clark squeezed towards those tyre barriers. On the brakes, Johnny Goddard late and hard in on Jeff Saunderson, who runs out wide. And he loses out to Trevor Randall and Jay Elliott. And Ian Blake has closed in on Darren Teal very quickly. There's a move coming there for sure. Trevor Randall down the inside of Goddard, but he runs out wide and Goddard gets it on the exit, and that's allowing Jay Elliott to run round the outside of 5. That's a brave move. And Elliott backs out of it, going into 6. And that'll put Chris Powell on his bumper. Out of the turn 7-8 complex. Randall ahead of Jay Elliott, Chris Powell, Jeff Saunderson badly placed on the outside, going backwards through this final after qualifying so well. More contact into the last corner, and then the long sweep round to start finish, and there's still contact going on down here at the back of the field. Saunderson to the inside of Matt Brooks. That's for 8th place, and 8th through 19th are all racing for 8th place. There's your leader, Brian Trott, ahead of Ian Blake, now ahead of Darren Teal. More contact between Martin and Saunderson. Martin goes through. Chris Hansen trying to find a way past Tim Clark, who's pushed his way through, and there's more contact between Brooks and Jay Elliott. Side by side through 6. Prepared to brave it out this time, but Elliott's back through into 7. So Jay Elliott stays in 13th place. On board with Chris Hansen, looking for a way by. Jamie Crease not too happy with John Maycock. Out of the last corner and on to lap 4. And Darren Teal's got back past Ian Blake, not prepared to give up second place. And this will give Pete O'Connor and Richard Hyam a chance to close in, to create a 4-way dice for second place. Meanwhile, Tim Clark has got a run on John Maycock, who had to lift mid-corner, releasing Jamie Crease. Darren Teal went in quite deep there into turn 7, and that has put Ian Blake hard on his bumper and looking for a way by once again. Pete O'Connor going with him. Richard Hyam just losing contact there. Sean Hollingsworth has got Johnny Goddard closing in on his bumper, looking for a run down the inside. Heavy contact between Crease and Randall, and there's more contact there with Johnny Goddard and Hollingsworth, and Goddard's gone through down the inside. Ian Blake into turn 2 on Darren Teal, and he's back in second place. Tim Clark and Trevor Randall. Randall tried to squeeze him there, but Clark's gone through, and Chris Hansen's done the pair of them. Whoa, and Clark has to go and miss that tyre barrier. He's not happy, and that's a bit naughty from Tim Clark. And we'll leave that one there before the language gets too colourful. So Ian Blake's got a kart length on Darren Teal, Pete O'Connor, Richard Hyam, Johnny Goddard in 6th, Sean Hollingsworth in 7th. Brian Trott's lead is 1.6 seconds at the line. Coming through in 8th place, Parmveen Najjar, but he's over 2 seconds down on Sean Hollingsworth in 7th. Scott Martin and Jonathan Lissiter round out the top 10. Yellow flag's been waved for Clark and Randall. Pete O'Connor trying to close that kart length on Darren Teal. Will enjoy the slipstream down into turn 1. And he's getting closer on the brakes into 7. The field beginning to break up and settle into their position that they can run at. And we're coming round to half distance now. Brian Trott's lead has just been trimmed slightly, a few hundredths of a second by Ian Blake. He continues to pull clear. It's half a second now on Darren Teal. On board with Goddard. Losing touch with Richard Hyam. And there's a black flag out for Tim Clark. Clark of the course has seen that one, and he has been black flagged from the race. Back on board with Jay Elliott, who's caught up with Jeff Saunderson to get a run down the inside of turn 4. He goes through. It was just a cart width, but that was all he needed. So Saunderson down to 12th. Jay Elliott moves up to 11th. Got quite a bit of work to do to run down 10th place. Jonathan Lissiter, he's 2 seconds up the road now. Back with Goddard, and he's closing in on Richard Hyam, Pete O'Connor and Darren Teal. This is turning into a 4-way dice for 3rd place. Trott still leads. It's 1.2 seconds. Ian Blake took another 2/10 out of Brian Trott on that last lap, and Hyam now is under pressure from Johnny Goddard. Keep an eye on those fastest lap times. They will set the grid along with the heat times for the second final. Fastest lap of the day will start on pole position. Chris Hansen looking for a way by John Maycock, as he has been for the whole of this race. Goddard not close enough to throw one down the inside of turn 7, but Hyam missed his apex. Not by a lot, but by some. Is he close enough to take advantage down at the hairpin? Well, Parmveen Najjar's going down the inside of Sean Hollingsworth, runs him out wide, but moves through to 7th place. Hansen's got a run on Maycock. Can he make it work? He can't. Road goes back in Maycock's favour. Johnny Goddard got too close to Richard Hyam, made contact, ran out wide. Fortunately didn't take him out, because that's right under the nose of one of the observers on the left there, Andy Cowell. So Goddard will have to regather himself, get back on it. And Ian Blake is closing on Brian Trott. The lead is 1.1 seconds. And now, as Goddard got a run for the hairpin, Hyam forced to cover. Narrow into 9. Throws him out wide for 10. And down the inside, Johnny Goddard. Now, can he get it squared off and turned and keep the momentum up to stop Hyam running around the outside of the last bend? And he has. So Goddard moves up to 5th. John Maycock still trying to find a way past Matt Brooks in what is the fight for 14th. Look how narrow Brooks is going into 1. This must be an opportunity for Maycock. And the momentum will be with Chris Hansen down into 2. Brooks goes to cover once again, but Maycock is through to 14th. And Hansen goes through between turns 2 and 3. Oh! And that's taken the camera out. No room given there. Jeff Saunderson coming under pressure from Jamie Crease. This is the battle for 12th place. And he's closing in. This is the battle of Baby Prems. Sean Hollingsworth is the leader of the Baby Prem class in 8th place. Crease down the inside of Saunderson. Goes in deep. Will give Saunderson a chance to run around the outside. But Crease is going to have the inside and the high ground for turn 1. And here comes Jamie Crease, and he goes through to 12th place. Well, the battle for 3rd has been going on. And there's a battle on for the lead. It's come late, but Ian Blake is in touch with race leader and championship leader Brian Trott. So a battle for the lead and a battle for 3rd. And Johnny Goddard trying to get across to join this battle for 3rd place. Trott leading out Ian Blake as they come round to start the final lap. Has he got enough time to get by? It's about half a kart length coming over start finish. It's game on at the front. Trott on the defensive. Swings back to the racing line to take the corner, but misses his apex. And a chance now for Blake. On a run down into turn 2. They're rubbing tyres. And Ian Blake goes through to the lead. Now is the time for a response from Trott. And Johnny Goddard's got past Pete O'Connor for 4th place. Out of turn 4, the leaders will be sweeping across 5, 6, and on the brakes into 7. Only a couple of spots left here for Brian Trott. He's in position, he's losing ground on the brakes into turn 7. And he's got half a kart length off turn 8. Now it's Blake to go defensive, narrow into 9. There'll be one last chance for Brian Trott. Blake goes half a kart width, narrower to cover, and Ian Blake is going to win the first final in Premier Class. But it's another podium for Brian Trott. Darren Teal got out the last corner, ahead of Johnny Goddard in 3rd.
This driver started on grid 3, finishing 3rd. Well done indeed. Driver number 10, Darren Teal. So our runner-up then, this driver qualified pole position and finished runner-up in final number 1 here at Ellough Park. Congratulations, driver number 2, Brian Trott. And to our race winner then, gaining maximum points, 130 points, starting on grid 4, came through to win the race. Congratulations, driver number 3, Ian Blake.
Fastest lap times from the heats in the first final dictate the grid positions for the second round of finals. And for Premier Class Final 2, Johnny Goddard takes his first pole position of the season. Inside of Palm Bay in the jar. Final 1 winner Ian Blake has the familiar figure of Brian Trott to his outside on row 2. Jonathan Lister and Pete O'Connor start on row 3. Champion Powell salvaged grid 7 from a disappointing 17th in final 1 and is joined on row 4 by Jay Elliott as the leading Baby Prem. John Maycock and Chris Hansen round out the top 10. It ought to be a 19-car grid with Tim Clark on grid 11, but he's been removed from the grid following an incident in final 1. 18 karts then, and Goddard controls the pace, and he's dropped the hammer early as well. Bringing him through at a fair old clip. Johnny Goddard leads over start finish. Palm Bay in a jar slots in behind Ian Blake into turn 1. Will they make it all through turn 1 cleanly? Well, they pretty much have this time. Chris Powell is behind Brian Trott in 4th place. On board with Randall, we're watching Chris Hansen weave his way past Jay Elliott and Jamie Crease. Down into 4. Narrow line in. If you can, and Randall's getting a run on Jay Elliott. We're riding with Jeff Saunderson. Oh, there's contact through turn 5. That could have ended in tears. I think they've got away with it. O'Connor down the inside of Maycock. I think that's for about 7th place. And Johnny Goddard is going to round out lap 1 in the lead. And ahead of final 1 winner Ian Blake. Palm Bay in a jar, Brian Trott, Chris Powell, all in close company. So no pressure, Johnny. And Jonathan Lisson has joined this group. We've got a 6-way dice for the lead here. And a gap has developed back to Pete O'Connor in 7th. Ian Blake looking very comfortable behind Goddard. Song at the wheel, Goddard, that's scrubbing off speed. Contact Randall on Hansen. Trying to wave him back through, but there should be somebody closing in behind, and it's Saunderson. Flat through 6. Over the hump and then on the brakes for 7. And it looks as though Powell might have had a bit of contact from Lissider. They've both lost ground. And it's effectively 4-way at the front. Johnny Goddard beginning to stretch them. On to lap 3, and Goddard's lead is 0.25 of a second. Ian Blake closing in down into turn 1. And it looks as though Brian Trott can see what's going on here and wants to be past Parnveen Najjar. He means to stay in touch with Ian Blake, given that Ian looks fairly rapid once he gets on a clear track. So Trott looking to the inside of 5, can't get it done. Is he setting it up now for 7? Or down at 9? On the brakes, Goddard, Blake, gap to Najjar, and Chris Powell and Jonathan Lissider coming back to Parnveen. So Najjar's under pressure here. Trott aware that the reigning champion is behind him. Lissider, O'Connor, gap then to Maycock, Martin, Hansen ahead of Darren Teal. And here comes Ian Blake. He's been mighty out of the last corner and down to turn 1 he goes through, and Trott goes through on Parnveen Najjar. So final 1 winner, Ian Blake hits the front in final 2. Can Goddard hang on to his bumper? Brian Trott is pulling across to Johnny Goddard. Trevor Randall trying to find a way past Darren Teal for 10th. And we're back to a group of 7. It's Blake, Goddard, Trott, Najjar under pressure now from Chris Powell. Jonathan Lissider, Pete O'Connor. Goddard trying to hang on in the slipstream of Ian Blake. But he's got Brian Trott on his bumper as they come across the start-finish line. Trott sets the fastest lap and goes through into turn 1. Clean as you like, lovely move. Next target is race leader Ian Blake. Narrow into 4, just to make sure that Goddard can't throw one back up the inside. Parnveen Najjar under pressure from Powell. Lissider, O'Connor. You're right on board with Pete O'Connor. Jonathan Lissider in the red ahead of us. Who's going to get the best run out of turn 8? It's Parnveen Najjar. He's got a run on the inside of Johnny Goddard, and he goes through to 3rd place. And Powell's going to have a run round the outside. Goddard in danger of bleeding positions here. He's on the wrong side. It's allowed Chris Powell through, Jonathan Lissider, and I expect Pete O'Connor to go through as well, and he has. A couple of corners there for Johnny Goddard. No mistakes, just nothing he could do about it. Appears to be struggling with that car handling. So O'Connor now trying to find a way past Lissider. Lissider went in fairly hot into turn 4. He's managed to hold the spot. John Maycock coming through in 8th. Scott Martin is the leading baby prem in 9th place. Chris Hansen rounds out the top 10. The whole field streaming through. And Chris Powell is closing on Parnveen Najjar and looking for 3rd place. Matt Brooks is holding off Richard Hyam, Jay Elliott and Sean Hollingsworth in the battle for 15th place. Scott Martin looking like he wants to be by John Maycock for 8th place. Into turn 2, double apex with turn 3. Avoid the tyres on the exit, narrow into turn 4. Certainly when you've got somebody on your bumper. Flat through 5, on to 6, and Brian Trott now moving on to the bumper of Ian Blake. Now how long is he going to wait? Is he going to wait to the last lap to take the lead? And repaying kind, what happened in final 1? Down the inside very heavily from Chris Powell. Late and hard, and it's let Jonathan Lissider go through to 3rd. and it's Ian Blake with a kart length on Brian Trott. They've got an advantage now on Jonathan Lissider of 1.5 seconds. Chris Powell in 4th. Palmvina Jar in 5th. On board with Pete O'Connor in 6th. And Brian Trott's got to run down the inside on the exit of turn 4. Can he make it stick into 5? Side by side, and he goes through. Blake didn't fight that one too hard. Lissider pulling clear with Chris Powell of the chasing pack. Trevor Randall cannot find a way past Darren Teal. Palmvina Jar down the inside of Pete O'Connor at the hairpin for 5th place. Goddard sniffing around looking for a way by. Maycock still managing somehow to hold off Scott Martin, and Chris Hansen is coming across. Teal holds off Randall. Jeff Saunderson coming through on his lonesome. Jamie Crease in 14th. Matt Brooks still hangs on to 15th ahead of Richard Hyam, Sean Hollingsworth, and Jake Elliott brings round the tail of the field. Chris Powell gets through cleanly on Jonathan Lissider and picks up 3rd place. Setting off now after Ian Blake. We're into the final quarter of this final. A lot of work to do for Powell if he means to get into this leading dice. Jonathan Lissider looking for a way by, but he's dropped a wheel off on the exit of turn 8. That'll cost him a few tenths. Pete O'Connor wants 5th place back from Palmvina Jar. That much is clear. Chris Hansen urging his card on, trying to get on the tail and into the slipstream of Scott Martin. Not quite there yet to get the benefit. John Maycock towing Scott Martin around. I think Martin's almost settled for following him. Haven't seen any moves go in. Back on board, Darren Teal runs wide, and Trevor Randall must have a run on him this time. Well, he seems to be struggling for revs coming out of turn 4. Of course, he's pulling a little bit more weight than Darren. Darren goes very deep into 8. This has got to be a chance for Trevor Randall down the inside of 9. And he goes through. Well, that's been coming for a few laps. Randall forced to defend into turn 10. Throws him out wide on the exit. May struggle down into turn 1. On to the penultimate lap now. Pete O'Connor wants 5th place. Palmvina Jar is determined to hang on to it. Running a little bit wide. But that's okay. He'll have the inside for turn 4. And he is very narrow going in. Johnny Goddard closing in on O'Connor as well. Trott pulling clear of Ian Blake. The battle is on for 5th though. And joining it now, Scott Martin, John Maycock and Chris Hansen. It's almost a 6-way dice. Coming round to start the final lap. Brian Trott's lead is 0.7 of a second ahead of Ian Blake, who's got a similar margin to Chris Powell. I think the top 3 is decided. Jonathan Lissider in 4th place. Palmvina Jar under pressure from Pete O'Connor coming out of turn 1. Johnny Goddard, John Maycock, Scott Martin, Chris Hansen, all ready and waiting to pick up the pieces if it all kicks off at the front here. O'Connor, love tap on Najjar, pushes them out wide. Are these last lap rules? Well, Najjar's kept the spot. And here they come, piling into 7. Anyone going to throw it up the inside? Not there. It's going to be turn 9 and 10. Can Palmvina Jar hang on to 5th place? He goes narrow into 9. One more corner, narrow into 10. That will be enough. It's going to be a 5th win of the season, a 7th podium in 8 starts for Brian Trott. He extends his lead to 57 points over Chris Powell, and Trott begins to look unstoppable even this early in the season. Another bumper return from Ellough for Ian Blake sees him installed in 3rd place in the championship table, only 12 points behind Powell, going into round 5 at Clay Pigeon in 3 weeks' time.
Starting on bridge 7, finishing 3rd today, driver number 1, Chris Powell. Driver starting 3rd, comes through, made up that position to finish runners-up with those precious 127 points. Welcome back to the podium, driver number 3, Ian Blake. And to our race winner then. This driver started on row number 2, indeed on grid number 4. There's no stopping him. Our race winner for final number 2 in the Premier Class, driver number 2, Brian Trott. And indeed a fastest up in the race to